This palette came out in 2010. 2010? And you still own it? Welcome back, everyone. Today's video, we're filming this a little bit spur of the moment. So recently I've been seeing that underconsumption is a trend. I posted a video on underconsumption. I was going through my empties. I was talking about using up my makeup, hitting pan on bronzers, eyeshadow palettes, etc. And a lot of you were commenting on that video of saying underconsumption is really just realistic makeup use. For people who do not have a gigantic makeup collection like myself, maybe even like you who watches beauty YouTube and you found yourself having a really large collection, say since like the 2016 days. And as you guys were writing in these comments, I was like, I really want to look at my friend at Ashley's makeup collection, because my friend Ashley has come on my channel with me a few times, and she is someone who really goes through her makeup products, hit pan on a lot of things like eyeshadow shades. And so I said, hey, will you pull out all of your eyeshadow palettes that you've hit pan on? After explaining what hit pan meant, she pulled out these palettes for me and I made a little short form video of it. And there was so many comments on that video of people saying, I still have some of these palettes. I still have this Stila palette, the Urban Decay palette. Video to my Instagram stories, and I said, what is the oldest palette that you still have in your collection? I went through all of your responses and I tallied up the top 10 eyeshadow palettes that are so old, yet you still have in your eyeshadow palette collection. Am I roasting you in this video? No, because we don't roast people over their makeup decisions. Absolutely not. That's not what we do on this channel. I thought it'd be fun to share with you 10 palettes that this community still has in their makeup collection. And we go back pretty far in this video. I would say that I typically link everything in my description box as well as the YouTube shopping button, but some of these palettes aren't even available anymore. I will link anything I can, including my makeup. I just did what is the trending sound right now? Cutesy Zamir makeup look today. I filmed this like right when I got up this morning and it's nearing 5 o'clock. So there's that. But I'm going to scoot over just a little bit because I am gonna have to add in photos for this video because I don't still own any of these palettes. I don't still own any of these, but let me share with you the ones that do. Now, like I said, I have the top 10 picked out from the top choices. Just to name a few that didn't make it into the top 10 on my list, I saw Urban Decay Gwen Stefani and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember when one of my girlfriends bought this eyeshadow palette and I was so jealous of her because at the time, I don't think I had my beauty YouTube channel yet because me and her had our joint Instagram account that was yoga focused. But there was a certain time where like we focused on yoga, but then we also started to incorporate like some beauty in there. And she bought the Urban Decay and Gwen Stefani palette and I was like, wow, that's such an amazing palette. So this had to be in like, I don't even know, like 2014, 15? That was a long time ago. I have the dates for the actual top 10 palettes that I'm gonna be talking about, but that one was like quite a flashback for me. Another one that I saw was like the Desi and Katie palette with Dose of Colors. This was one that I decluttered in one of my more recent declutters and I was hanging on to it for a long time because of those like special memories. The time of like 2016 YouTube, the like the team with Ipsy, like the Desi and the Katie, and who else was in there? Like I Love Sarah E, Crispy, like does Crispy still make videos anymore? Like, I know Desi and Katie are kind of like doing their own thing. They still post, but not like beauty videos anymore. And they have their own brands and Desi's got her whole family and all these things. But like, that was really quite a time. And I remember watching Desi and Katie and them doing like their makeup collabs and traveling together. And I remember just thinking like, wow, I wish I had a friend like that. I wish I had a friend where we could do makeup collabs and travel together. But that was definitely such like an epic time for me anyways. Like that's like such a fun memory to have from YouTube days. I saw a lot of ABH palettes mentioned, the ABH Subculture, the ABH Prism palette, ABH and Makeup by Mario. That was a while ago. One thing that I also saw, Tarte Graveyard Girl. That one has to be an old palette, right? That one's got to be really up there. And then I also saw a couple Stila palettes mentioned, which the Stila palettes were the ones I really felt like were getting the attention in my video that I did with Ashley. People were like, wait, what? Like, because her palettes are, we used to do that makeup tag back in the day, the used and abused makeup tag. Like Ashley could do that one really just on her Stila palettes because they look like they had been through a few things. Those were a few other palettes that I saw being mentioned, but again, I'm gonna go through my top 10. So I'll start at 10 and work down to 1. One was a runaway. Two and three were like close together, but one was like a runaway, then 2 and 3, and then everything else kind of trickled behind it. But I thought it would be fun to do the top 10. Of course, I want to hear what your oldest palette is in your collection, if it's any of these that I'm mentioning, or if you have something else in there. Don't be shy. Don't be shy, drop it in the comments. Alrighty, so at number 10 on my list, we have the Colourpop and Kathleen Light's Dream Street palette. I believe this came out in 2018. There was a few palettes that was a little bit hard for me to lock down a date. Some I was looking at like YouTube videos, some you could find like articles about it. But I believe this one launched around 2018. This was a palette that I owned for a very long time as well. I loved my Dream Street palette. The Colourpop Kathleen Light days, I feel like those were also just, those are like some core memories that I have from being on YouTube. I remember purchasing her lip products when she came out with them. And this is like such a random story, but it's just like a memory that I have. But I was supposed to go to the movies that day with my friends, and I canceled my plans because I was like, the lipsticks came in early, and I was like, I have to sit down, I have to film these. Like, remembering the days of like speed shipping, I don't know if that's what I'm trying to say, but like expedited shipping on makeup products, literally staring at your door all day waiting for these makeup products to come in, dropping everything, filming swatches, looks, whatever you could do to get your videos up first. Like, knowing if your video wasn't going to be one of the first 3 that were up, being like, that was a waste of money, I can't believe I did that. Like, starting out on YouTube in the beauty community in 2016, when it was like, it was already at the height, but then you were starting as like a newcomer, was like quite stressful. I'm not gonna lie to you. I can remember having conversations with my friends and just like the constant stress in our voices of like how much money we're spending on shipping. We're buying full collections of makeup products. I'm like, wow, what a vibe to look back on. But the Colourpop Kathleen Lights collections, she came out with so much from Colourpop. I bought so much from them. Kathleen Lights is someone that I still really look up to, and she was someone that I definitely looked up to while I was starting out as a creator as well. Luckily, Colourpop was a more affordable brand, but that Dream Street palette, that was a good one. At number 9, there was a lot of KVD Shade and Light palettes on there, and wow, did that also bring back some memories. Everyone was clamoring to get their hands on the Shade and Light palette. I feel like the Makeup Revolution dupe for the Shade and Light was one of the first times we really saw like the kerfuffle of, is dupe makeup cool or not? Because some people were like, no, it's great. We have a product that's so similar, yet we don't have to spend more money on it just because of, you know, a name brand. And then other people were like, well, this is stealing, this is thievery, this isn't cool. You shouldn't be able to buy or support or use or talk about dupe makeup. And there kind of became this like divided line in the YouTube community. I feel like this video is going to be fun to do because it's just kind of like flashing. I love talking about like old school YouTube stuff. If there's any other topics, as I sit on my feet, if there's any other topics that you'd want to see that kind of relates to that, like I always have so much fun talking about this kind of stuff. But I do remember that being one of the first, at least in my mind, that was one of the first times that we really saw the battle between, is dupe makeup stealing or is it giving people something at a more affordable price point? Would love to know your thoughts on that, because I mean, it's something that we see again and again and again and again now, not just in the beauty space, but you know, pretty much everywhere. But the Shade and Light palette, I can remember buying that and trying to understand like a gray contour. That was a lot for me. Again, this is like such random makeup memories that I have with these palettes, but I bought this palette right before I took a trip to Chicago with my friends. We were going to a Cubs game, we were going to a concert, and I remember being in the bathroom with one of my girlfriends and looking at this Shade and Light palette. It was like that gray, like, and I was like, I think I was supposed to put it under my cheekbone. And she's like, do you think that's right? I was like, I don't know, but I feel like that's what the people on YouTube are saying I'm supposed to do. Like, I was so confused. I was like, I just don't know if I'm using this palette right. But the Shade and Light ended up being definitely a favorite palette of mine for a long time. Obviously, then we had the whole drama with Kat Von D and then KVD Beauty and then Kindness Vegan Burger, I don't know, whatever it turned into. There was that whole thing, but the Shade and Light definitely has had its time and had its place in beauty YouTube history. Alrighty, then we have at number, I believe that palette came out in 2016. At number 8, there was definitely a lot of Anastasia on here. Like I said, I already mentioned like Prism, Subculture, the Makeup by Mario, but at number 8, we had the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam palette, which I believe launched in 2018. Beautiful palette, one of my favorite palettes from Anastasia. I personally really love the Sultry palette from the brand, but the Soft Glam I feel like was such a hit and such a, to me, still kind of like one of those like staples from the Anastasia line. It's, you know, definitely was geared towards like the neutral lover, which still does really well. I know there's so many people and so many people that I'm close to that love the colorful makeup and love the duochromes and the multi-chromes, but there is definitely still an audience from back when I started on YouTube to where I'm on at YouTube today. There's still an audience that loves those neutral palettes, and you know, the Anastasia palettes with the, you know, velvety front, I just feel like they really have such a core memory as well when it comes to the YouTube days, and I was not surprised at all to see the Soft Glam still on here. And then at number 7, we have from Morphe. This was the Morphe Jaclyn Hill, the original palette that launched, and this was in 2016. I have multiple memories around this palette. First of all, getting it. So I received this palette in PR and I nearly lost my shit. When I got the message that I was gonna get this in PR, I believe this was the first time I was getting any Morphe PR. It was Jaclyn Hill herself that had requested to Morphe to put me on the PR list for this. I lost my mind. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Jaclyn Hill was one of the first beauty YouTubers, like right behind Carly Bible, that I started watching. I went to her page for so many makeup tips and tricks and what products to buy, and also just for like comfort. You know, definitely a parasocial friendship, 100%. But you know, she was someone I could watch her videos when I was having kind of like a bummer day, and it would just be like fun to sit down and like chat with a friend, right? I felt that way about so many of the beauty YouTubers that I did watch and that I still watch. I still watch for comfort as well. But I got the message that I needed to sign for it because I believe this was the PR package that had like a whole TV inside, and there was like a message from her and all these things, and it was a pretty expensive package. So you had to sign for it. And the time that it got delivered, I wasn't home and I was devastated. I was devastated because I think how it worked was I thought it was coming the next day and it ended up coming a day early. Otherwise I would have sat at home all day, right? And so I come home, I have the slip that says, you know, we've missed you, but you can sign it and, you know, put this back, we'll come back tomorrow, or you can pick it up and you have until 7 o'clock. And it was like 5 o'clock. My ex-husband now was just getting home from work and I was like, will you please like take me? And I vlogged the whole thing. Like I vlogged like, we're going to go pick up the palette. And I'm like driving to UPS trying to make it there before it closes. Again, I just look back and I just think of like how funny it is to me because like my life revolved around this for such a long time, for trying to make my YouTube channel work, for trying to put out good videos, for trying to get, you know, the makeup releases as fast as I could, for trying to do the best job I could at like swatching and doing eye demos and reviewing products. And I remember one thing when I first started on YouTube that I really prided myself in was sometimes I don't always get my videos up the fastest, but I really want them to be like good reviews. Like I want to try products many times before I come on to say like, hey, I think this product is great. And I was really against doing like first impressions for a long time because I just think that I didn't think that they were helpful when it came to influencing someone on what they're shopping for and that sort of thing. And you know, obviously my opinions and thoughts and everything, it changes throughout the years and it changes as social media changes. And nowadays I feel like people turn more towards social media for the entertainment aspect and not as much of those like thorough reviews that we once used to give on YouTube. And as someone who started in the space as a writer, as a blogger, and I would write my reviews, then we went to video reviews and demos. I still have it in me of like, I still love making long form videos. I still want to talk to you about all the products. I want to show you everything. I want to talk to you while I'm applying them and tell you what I feel instead of just doing like a 4-second reel of doing my makeup as fast as I can in as many little clips as I can. To me, I just don't find that as helpful, but you know, you always got to keep up with the times. Things are always changing, and if you don't keep up, you'll get left behind, and that's how it is. But it's just so funny to me to look back to be like, that was the most important thing for me that week, was to get that palette as soon as I could, to swatch every single shade, to put them all on my eyes, to do 5 looks with the palette, to get the best thumbnail up, to make sure my SEO was there. Like, crazy times. I don't own the palette anymore, but that's definitely one that I have a lot of memories with. All right, at number 6, we have another Anastasia palette. This one is the Norvina palette. I believe this one launched around in 2018 as well. Again, I feel like around this time, Soft Glam and Norvina, Anastasia was definitely like killing the eyeshadow game for a while there. People were getting so excited for all of the new releases. I feel like it really started with the Modern Renaissance, which is going to be coming. There was good palettes before then. I believe like the Makeup by Mario was before then as well. And there was good palettes, but I really feel like after the Modern Renaissance, which was in 2016, that is when people started to get really excited. Of course, we had like the subculture moment, which was kind of like what happened there? But then with the Soft Glam, the Norvina, the Sultry came out, everyone would get so excited when Anastasia started saying that she was coming out with a new eyeshadow palette. Like I mentioned, Sultry is my favorite. It's still the one that I own in my collection from Anastasia, but I would love to know, do you have a favorite Anastasia palette? Or do you have like, what's your oldest one in your collection? Or do you still have multiples of those? So curious. Next up, at number 5, halfway through the list, we have the Tarte Clay Play palette. This launched in 2017. This is always a little bit startling when this happens, but as I'm like Googling everything, I'm like, when did the Tarte Clay Play palette come out? The second search result that came up was Samantha March blasting Tarte Cosmetics for the Clay Play 2 palette, and I was like, okay. It was a Reddit thread. I mean, it wasn't a bad one. It was, the Tarte Clay Play palette came out and I loved it. Then the Tarte Clay Play 2 came out like the following year or something, and it was essentially the exact same palette, just with the shade names changed. And I was like, what is this? Like, I was so upset about it. And I remember like, cause I bought both palettes and I loved the Clay Play 1 so much. I was so excited for the Clay Play 2. And again, like dropped everything. I come home, I'm making this video, and then I'm like, wait a second. That's literally the same palette, except now instead of the shade names being like cutesy in the Clay Play 1 and the Clay Play 2, it was like black, white, gray. And I was like, whoa, what? And so I remember that video of like me realizing and me being upset about it. Like as a consumer, like I was upset about it, right? I do remember that video getting a lot of hits and a lot of shares and a lot of comments, and the Reddit thread was going off about it. But I was like, this isn't right. Like, and I feel like that was the time that I really started to be like, I'm just not vibing with Tarte right now. And it's so funny to me because I have seen Tarte. It's one of those brands that has been in hot water so many times. Sometimes for very, very valid reasons. Sometimes for ones that I don't feel like are as valid. But it's still a brand that's highly successful, that continues to do well, that continues to put out new products, that continues to go viral. It's one of those, like, sometimes it's interesting being online and seeing brands and people that just seem untouchable. And to me, Tarte is like untouchable. Like, sure, they have those moments and they have those like, is Tarte really canceled moments? But like, I don't know, I guess to me, it's just one of those that are just like untouchable. Do you have any, let's stick with brands. We don't need to get into people, but brands. Do you have any brands that you feel like no matter what, like, they still gonna be around, they still gonna be doing well? And it's not that I wish for like the demise of anyone or a downfall of anyone by any means, but sometimes I'm just like, because some brands can do like crazy things and be fine, and other brands can do like, have the most like minor slip up sometimes, and it's just like finito. And I'm like, I wonder how that works. Like, to me, I don't understand it. And again, you see it with influencers, you see it with like celebrities. It's like, how do you pick which one is like untouchable or not? I don't really know the science behind that. But going back to the Clay Play palette, I loved this one, man. This was bomb. This is one of my favorite palettes. And then Clay Play 2 had to happen. All right, moving on to number 4, we have the Lorac Pro palette. I believe this one came out around 2016, but like I was getting a little bit confused because I was never a big Lorac girly, so I never even tried the Pro palette. And I know there was like Pro 1 and 2, there was like an unzipped or like an unlocked or like an undressed or like, I don't really know. There's a lot of Lorac palettes out there with similar names, but I think this one, again, 2016, you're hearing me say 2016 a lot in this video because that's when a lot of these releases came out. Again, height of beauty YouTube, in my opinion. But like I said, I never tried this palette. I really didn't get into Lorac much. I know I tried like the brunch palette. It was one I liked from them. The Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like a big fan of that. But I feel like in those like kind of those more like old school days, I wasn't necessarily a Lorac girly, but would love to know if you still own that one. At number 3, we have the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance. So kind of touched on that one. Again, this is a palette that I feel like really kicked off like the eyeshadow palette craze. Again, were eyeshadow palettes popular before 2016? Yes, of course. But I feel like especially, and I speak as the beauty online community, right? Sometimes I've touched in videos on the past of like the online beauty community versus like the offline beauty community. What's popular, what's trending, it's very different. It oftentimes is very different anyways. But to me, I feel like with the online beauty community, it was the Modern Renaissance really kind of sparked something in people for eyeshadow palettes, and we became so hungry for eyeshadow palettes, and they were so popular, and brands were just pumping out eyeshadow palettes as much as they could. And you know, sometimes I see, you know, oh, brands are releasing too much, or they're coming out with too many eyeshadow palettes. A lot of times there's a business behind it. Brands are coming out with what the audience is asking for, but also where the money is. Where the audience is actually spending their money, brands are going to keep coming out with that. You know, as someone who owns a business now and also does business consulting with brands in beauty and beyond, one of the most interesting factors is always looking at the data. And the biggest data is, where's the money coming from? Where's the return on investment? What are the highest selling products? What do the people want right now? And so I just feel like that the Modern Renaissance really kind of kick-started this crazy eyeshadow palette obsession. You started seeing more and more videos of my gigantic eyeshadow palette collection, my 200 plus eyeshadow palette collection. Then you started to see the declutter videos getting really popular, decluttering 300 palettes in my eyeshadow palette collection. I mean, I'm right here. I'm right here with you. I'm making those videos too. Those videos were so popular. Ranking eyeshadow palette videos, which I still believe I was the first one to do, ranking like all of the palettes that I tried. I believe it was the year 2019. And then ranking eyeshadow palette videos became super popular. To me, I feel like it's the modern run. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Because again, this was 2016. I'm not saying eyeshadow palettes were not popular before then. I just feel like in the online beauty community, the mod run kind of kicked it off for us. At number 2, I was almost a little bit surprised to see this at number 2. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I know that this is a very popular palette. This is from Too Faced, the Chocolate Bar palette. This got a lot, again, the Chocolate Bar and the Mod Run were very, very close to each other, but also very high up there. The number 1 ran away with it. Maybe you've guessed number 1 by now. But the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, this was one I actually didn't own. And now I feel kind of like, am I left out? Should I have had that one? I believe that one came out in 2016 as well. Again, very popular time. Too Faced really also to me had many moments, many moments in the online beauty community, and they were ones that had been through hot water. They're ones that to me, I feel like still does well. In my opinion, I feel like Tarte still does better than Too Faced. Let me know what you think. Am I wrong? But to me, like Too Faced still comes out with new products. I know they had like change in ownership and all of those things several years back, but eyeshadow palettes were really popular. I know one of my most popular videos was the Too Faced like white chocolate chip palette or something like that, mostly because I didn't like it, but you know, negativity usually does better online than positive reviews. Still a tale as old as time. But the Chocolate Bar palette, do you still have it? This was a cute palette. I wasn't necessarily surprised to see it in the top 10. I guess just for some reason it caught me off guard being in the top 2, but let us know what you think. And then at number 1, if you haven't guessed, and I feel like this just, when I saw this being mentioned so much, I was like, honestly, this is just a timely video to make as well, because it's the Urban Decay OG Naked Palette, which has just recently been re-released by Urban Decay. Smart move. Smart move. Marketing, PR, finance, accounting, HR, I don't know, tech, IT, everybody at Urban Decay, smartest move you could do is to release the Naked Palette. I can't even imagine how much that one is selling, even though a lot of you are saying you still own it, so maybe you're not going out and buying the new one. But this palette launched in 2010, y'all. In 2010, and so many of you still have this eyeshadow palette. Listen, listen. I get roasted for a lot of my makeup decisions, then I just feel like I'm not gonna accept them anymore. Not if you got a 2010 eyeshadow palette in your collection. You can't run, no, I'm just kidding, I'm just playing with you. But I was very surprised yet not, right? To see how many people mentioned the Urban Decay Naked Palette. I will say, I said the Modern Renaissance kicked off like the eyeshadow palette craze, but I do feel like the OG Naked Palette that kicked off something for people even before online beauty became such a big thing, before it became such a staple on YouTube, before it became a staple on Instagram and all the rest of the things. The OG Naked palette, that was a palette that I would go to a friend's house, that's the palette she had. I would go to a different friend's house, that's the palette she had pan in. And it would stay consistent throughout the years. Even as I started to get more into makeup and trying different makeup brands and trying different eyeshadow palettes, I would still always see that OG Naked palette. Weddings, you know, getting ready for my friend's wedding, she has the OG Naked palette. The makeup artist coming to do our makeup, the OG Naked palette. And I'm just like, this Naked palette was everywhere. I'd love to know if you still have it or if you did buy it or are planning to buy it since Urban Decay launched it again. But I just feel like it's very smart to launch it. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised they didn't do it sooner. There's been a lot of like, obviously like, not revamps, but you know, even like shows and I don't know, like reunion tours and things like that. Like it wouldn't have surprised me if they would have launched this like 2 years ago or something and brought it back, but not super surprised to see it out now. Is it the same though? I know that I've seen a lot of videos going up of, is it the same? Is it different? Is it still as good? Who knows? Absolutely the #1 runaway spot, the oldest palette that you still have in your collection, Urban Decay Original Naked palette. That is the top 10 oldest palettes that you still have in your collection. Like I said, drop yours. Drop yours in the comments. I want to know if there's any other videos you would like to see, especially any videos that I can interact with you on. I always love making these kinds of videos. Please let me know. As always, if you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe before you go. I'll see you in the next one.